Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from MyRSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flammang, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uyeyama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Thursday, April 24th, and it is the night of the first round of the NFL draft, and so we are going to talk about Notre Dame's draft prospects. It doesn't look like anyone's going to go in the first round for Notre Dame today, but they could have a couple of players go in day two tomorrow with Xavier Watts, Ben Morrison, and possibly some other players. We'll talk about that possibility, and we'll talk about just all the players that could get drafted. I'm going to be referencing the beast that Dane Brugler puts together. It's basically his draft guide. It's a very, very good document. He does a great job with it, and it gives a lot of insight into how he views players. And I think it's just a good reference point for this conversation here. So we're going to talk about that. Talk about Notre Dame's current roster and what the NFL draft could look like a year from now. And then we'll talk about the House settlement decision from the judge, where she basically said, look, if you don't find a way to grandfather in the players on current rosters and we're not cutting a bunch of guys, then I'm just going to dismiss, or I'm going to deny the whole thing, and you're not going to have any settlement at all. So we're going to talk about that. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today. If you like what you hear, please hit that like button. Please subscribe to our channel. Please hit the notification bell. So whatever it is, we are going live. Links to the podcast, as always, are in the description below. And as always, the show is brought to you by ESQ Clothing, founded by Notre Dame alum Ge Wang. You've seen ESQ on all your favorite Notre Dame players and coaches. With over a decade of making the best custom clothing available, ESQ will help you look and feel your best in 2025. From a perfect fitting suit or sport coat, shirt, or bomber jacket, or the perfect tuxedo for wedding season, check out Ge's amazing work at esqclothing.com. Book an appointment to upgrade your wardrobe today. Mention ISD and get 10% off your entire purchase. That's esqclothing.com. Jamie, I know that I know. Look, you're a football guy. You love the Steelers. You're a draft guy. What is your earliest draft memory from watching the NFL draft? Young Yama, what do you remember your first memory?
Earliest draft memory? You know what? I don't know if I could say what this was like the earliest draft memory, but my most vivid draft memory is like I used to watch it obviously all the time. Like I used to tape it. Like I used to,
same.
100% I used to tape
same.
it and like rewatch it over and over again. like So I definitely remember, just I loved Berman doing the highlights of the guys while they got drafted. Kuiper's chipping in his things when
because you didn't have YouTube or anything. You didn't have access.
No, it was not there.
You just so like you were learning about the players and the highlights. I'm totally with you on that. Just watching the highlights of the guys.
There also was not college football was not on TV like it is now, where every game is on pretty much. Like if there's a guy who's like big time in the draft, chances are you've seen him. There's also like, draft Twitter and all this kind of stuff. So like people know that if there's like a guy who's like on East Carolina who might be a first round pick, well, you've heard about him for months at the very least. You probably heard about him for a year, right? Like that's something that happens now. That didn't happen back then. So like when there was a guy who was like a first round pick and he was from like a smaller school, you didn't really know much. Sometimes guys at big schools, you didn't even really know that much about, because if you didn't watch it every week, like how would you know, like, about this corner or this, safety or something like that from, some random, like Illinois or something like that. You wouldn't know. Like most of the things that I learned about a lot of the guys, like I remember like, Kevin Hardy and Simeon Rice. And I watched the draft before then, but specifically just those guys, like, I don't think I watched an Illinois game in like them play college. I never watched it, but I read about those guys for at least 2 years leading up to it in college football preview magazines. Like that was how you did it back then. And I mean, I didn't like order the Mel Kiper draft guide or anything like that, but I used to buy like the Pro Football Weekly had a big draft guide. I used to buy that every year, like all that kind of stuff where you'd learn about it. I loved it. Sporting News always had one. I loved it. I loved all that stuff. I still love it. Obviously it's different. I don't dive into it as much now because I hate like there's nothing I can't stand than people who like actually don't like, quote unquote grind the tape and pretend they're experts. Like they know like exactly like, all these guys. I can tell and I know we're going to talk about it, but I could tell you all the guys in Notre Dame, like we know them very well. We know them well. I think we have a pretty good idea of like, what they can be in the NFL, but I couldn't tell you about some guy from Wake Forest who's on might be a 5th round pick or whatever, because Notre Dame didn't play Wake Forest this year. And I watched 0 Wake Forest games. So, and even if I watched like one game, whatever, but I could tell you a lot about like the guys that, Notre Dame played because I like studied them and I watched them a lot. So it's different. So, it's a different thing for me now. I still like usually my buddy can't make it this year, but like I've had my one like buddy that we've like watched the draft together like many years, that like as like adults we've watched it together too. So but that's I still like it. It's still an event for me. I love it.
Yeah, I remember, like, I do remember, like, someone referenced the Heath Schuler, Rick Meyer. I remember him being drafted. Like, I have shades of that. I remember when Bettis was drafted. I remember like Reggie Brooks going in the 2nd round to the Redskins. Like, I remember those things. The one that like really stands out to me is that 94 draft with like Marshall Faulk came out. Like the Marshall Faulk draft. Like, he was a guy where it's like, I saw him in like the magazines, right? Like all the Athlon stuff. And I knew about him, but again, you just didn't see him play that much. Right. And so when he got drafted and they showed his highlight tape, while he's, going up and getting his hat or whatever it is, I remember watching him and be like, Jesus, this guy is unbelievable. Like, what an incredible player he is. I love that part of it. And that was the draft when the Colts, I don't know if they moved up or what it was, but they drafted Trev Albert and they didn't take Trent Dilfer, and Mel Kiper was just killing them for it. And so then the general manager
went on and ripped
Bill
Kiper,
Tobin, he goes on with Chris Mortensen, and he's like, hey, who is this Mel Kiper anyway? Like, he doesn't know anything. He doesn't know any more than my neighbor who's a postman. He doesn't, like, why does he get to comment on my picks and stuff? And then they cut to Mel Kiper, and he's like, you know what? Like, this is why you guys are drafting in the front of the draft every single year, because you guys are terrible at it. And they were going back. It was elite television, and it was like he didn't hold back. And I got to say, like, Mel Kiper, like a lot of people don't like him. I respect him because he's been around for so long and he just like sticks to it. And he's not really like I don't see him as like a hot take guy. That's the other part. It's like he has his evaluations and he goes about his process, and it is what it is. And you don't really have to like it, but like he sells it. And like, look, he works his butt off. And to me, he's very similar to Dane Brugler. Like, what does Brugler know about any of this, right? Like, he didn't play. He has the same bona fides as Mel Kiper, but like, if you put the work in and you put your name behind it, I'm totally good with it. So that was incredible. I loved it. I loved the draft so much as a kid. Like you, I recorded it. And this was back in the day when it was like just they started on Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Pacific time, and they just drafted until it was too late. And they said, all right, we're going to call it, and then we'll come back tomorrow and we'll finish the draft, right? Like the first round would take like 6 hours. Like, it was just incredible. I loved it so much. And I love just like sitting on the couch all day. My mom hated it, right? She hated me sitting there doing nothing all day, but it was one of my favorite times of the year. So yeah, that was one of my favorite draft memories. Go ahead.
Just to kind of add into the thing with, I will say the one thing, there was that one thing with Kuiper and the Jimmy Clausen thing. It was a really bad look for him. Where he was like,
he thought he was so good. He was like,
well, it wasn't that. It was like he was and he was really because he was really plugged in with the agent, and the agent was the kind of influenced him, and that's what you kind of realize is that there's a number of the draft Twitter guys that it's like they get used by agents and by teams to kind of like, put stuff out there because they want stuff to be out there like that. So, and I think that, like you said, like I respect those guys because I do think they put in work, but it's impossible not to be influenced by when they get like, this person in there, or you're telling them this or that, the ones that are big enough that they actually have these people that they talk to quite a bit. But I will say, like, that's why I think like Daniel Jeremiah, to me, is the kind of the top guy right now because one, he was a scout for many years,
right?
And I think, and he's talked about how teams have said whatever that he's higher on this or whatever, and he does get influenced in terms of what his mock draft is, but his board is very like, it doesn't fit with how you see a lot of other boards, and you see a lot of like, and how like the draft goes down. He's very like, hey, this is my guy and whatever. And he has this thing. And I think you see that more with the top guys with him, like where he's like, if he thinks that like Kyle Hamilton's number 5 guy in the draft, he's going to put him number 5, right? Like that's just where he's going to be. And that's why I've always kind of tended to, maybe not trust is the right word, but like kind of lean towards his stuff more and just like taking it like if I'm going to cite stuff like a top 100 or top 50, I would do his first.
Yeah, like he makes it clear like his mock draft is basically based on what he's heard from around the league, what he thinks will happen. His top 100, I don't know how deep he goes, but his top 100, top 150 or whatever is like, this is my evaluation. So it's like he separates it that way, which is a good thing. You can kind of see how he differs from the consensus and things like that. Let's go through Notre Dame's players here. We can start with Watts because he's I think he's projected as the highest, ranked player on Notre Dame's team right now. And he's projected to go somewhere in the second round. I think, let me just check here. Dane Brugler has him, I want to say, as the third safety, has a second round grade on him. Look, he's destined. He's going to go to he's obviously going to go to the Ravens, right? Like it is his destiny to do so. He's going to play next to Kyle Hamilton, and it's going to be great. So we'll just get that out of the way right now. What do you, how high do you think he can go? Like, do you think that he can go like upper second round? Do you want him on the Steelers? Will you be upset if the Steelers don't draft him? What do the Steelers need for him? And just like, I feel like of all the players who, we talk about like this guy has a chance to help himself. Like, I don't know that there's a better example of a player who had a chance to help himself in the draft, came back, and then actually did. Like he really improved his game, and I feel like he really bumped himself up. Like, I don't know that a year ago, if he had come out, if he would have been a 5th rounder, right? Or like a second rounder. I think he would have been more like a 4th, 5th rounder guy. Now, like, I think he's pretty consensus in the second round. So just talk about Xavier Watts a little bit and what you could see. How upset will you be if the Steelers don't draft him?
I won't be upset if they don't draft him, just because I don't think it's like a big like need. Like, they're pretty good at safety right now. I don't think that they absolutely need someone like him to come in and like be a starter right away.
It's a bad take. You always need good safeties, Jamie.
I'm just saying, like, they don't have. It's not one of these guys that they have a lot more holes on the roster that I think need to be addressed. That
I mean,
so
there's
I
this,
won't.
this
I'm just saying.
situation.
I'm just saying that I won't be upset if they don't take him. Like I won't hold it against them because I can understand why.
Yeah.
If they have somebody with a similar grade at at a more position of need, I get it. But I'll be thrilled if they do take him. I think he's an awesome player. Like you said, he made a huge jump in the last year. I really don't. I think to me, there's a lot of like the Kyle Hamilton like criticism of like because he didn't have like mind-blowing 40 time or whatever. Like, I mean, his 40 time is fine, but who cares about he didn't have a mind-blowing 40 time. Watch him on the field against Georgia and how fast he played. Throw the Georgia film. Throw that game on.
Yeah.
Tell me who was a better safety in that game, him or Malachi Starks. Just go watch both sides of the ball. Watch both. You tell me who's playing faster. Who's playing faster? Who made more of an impact on the game? And whatever, I rest my case. Like it's just that's. And I think that Malachi Starks could be. I mean, I would take him like as another guy too. I think he should go high and like he's got a chance to be really, really good. I think one thing that people forget about with stuff like that with Malachi Starks is like, yeah, he was a really good player, and he's still young. Like he's a 3-and-out guy. He's a chance to be really great in the NFL. But if I'm talking about like just a guy with like I think Watts is a super high floor. He's got a super high floor, and he's gonna be like a really good player. Like I will not surprise if he is going to be a guy who makes multiple Pro Bowls in his career. I think he can come in and be someone in the right team, compete to be a starter right away. Should be a guy who starts for multiple years in the NFL, like have a really, really good career. And he's just a really smart, instinctive player with great ball skills and who's getting better. Like he hasn't played that much safety. So I think that, mid-second round makes sense for me. Like, could he go earlier than I guess he could, but like, I think, just based on how they kind of view safety, like I always think that like, there's never going to be too many safeties. Like usually when you're looking at it right now, you're never going to find one or more than one or two safeties that go in the first round. That's just how it's been lately. Right. Like, which is one of the reasons why Kyle Hamilton wasn't like a top 5 pick, right? Like he was a top 15 pick because he played because of his position. Well, thankfully, like the Ravens were smart enough to know that like, hey, this guy's like a Swiss Army knife who can do all these things. And I frankly think that like Watts is a little bit of a Swiss Army knife too. Like not quite the same as Hamilton, but he can do a lot of different things. And I'm just a big fan of his game. I think that he is I can understand why if he went last year, if he was like, viewed as like a day 3 pick, because there were things in his game that you saw got way better, specifically like tackling. He was way better, in his final year. So I think he should be a second round pick, like at some point, and whoever gets him is going to be lucky. Like I think he's going to be a very good player for them.
I mean, you just look at some of like the background that Dane Brugler goes into. He was the starting center in flag football before moving to quarterback, running back, and wide receiver throughout Pee Wee football.
I know all those
in middle school. In middle school, Watts developed into a standout linebacker and played both ways. Like middle school, when Xavier was 3, his family moved to Omaha, Nebraska, where Jeff joined his dad. Jeff joined his family's screen printing business, Big Ink. Like he named,
I know, yeah.
He named the name of the company. That's good stuff. Yeah, I mean, look, the thing is like what you're going to get from him, and like to me, this is like, I don't want to say 10 years because it's hard to predict with NFL and injuries and stuff, but this is like he's going to get a second contract, right? He's going to be your starting safety, like maybe in year 2. Like if Alohi Gilman has stuck in the NFL for as long as he has, like Xavier Watts is going to be someone's starter for 4 or 5 years, 4 or 5, 6 years. Like he's going to be, and like he has that second year he gets to the second contract early because he was a second round pick. So it's just like, that's going to be his thing. And, we'll see. Like, I think he'll be the first Notre Dame player drafted. He will get picked. In my opinion, he'll get picked over Morrison just because of the, the injury concerns and things like that. And like, I was looking at at Morrison's kind of thing on the Beast. Like Dane Brugler has him as the 10th corner. But if you look at all of like the questions with him, it's like, there's some stuff on Morrison where it's like, his play strength is a little questionable. And I think that's fair. Like, I think it's fair to say, like, he's not the most forceful player in run support, even though he's willing. Like, he doesn't have that upper body strength that you kind of would want from someone who's like playing the boundary. And he does get grabby in coverage. That was another thing that was kind of part of his evaluation. But then the rest of it was like his hips. And Matt was kind of going on to me about his, I think he was trolling part of it, but
yes,
I know he was winding me up, and that's fine. But like, he kept mentioning his 2 hip surgeries, and I'm thinking in my mind, like, when did the second one happen? Like, I know he just had one, but I was like, was there an off-season hip surgery that I'm just not remembering? It happened his junior year in high school, and it was the same issue. There was a labral problem as a high school player as well, and so like, if this is like a chronic thing, then yeah, like that's chronic hip problems for a corner is that's pretty red flaggy, right? Because like, I look at the rest of his weaknesses, and it's like, it has nothing really to do with him in coverage, right? And for me, I'm just not trying to hear about the weaknesses of him as a player vis-a-vis the other corners in the class, because I just don't see it. If it's an injury thing, fine. But like, I don't see it from a, looking at the tape. I'm sorry. You're just not selling me.
Well, there's no way he's the 10th best corner in the class. Looking at the tape. That's insane. It is really, it's truly insane.
Yeah.
And it's insane if you watch him, and it's insane if you just look at the production, because how many guys have the ball production he does? Even that he didn't have that much ball, like barely any ball production this year. Right. But like, still in his first 2 years more than like most guys have in a career, right? Like that is a real thing. Like
27 total passes defended, which is interceptions plus PBUs. So it's like, that's a ton.
He also had like some picks taken off the board because of flags that weren't on him. Like, so, I mean, if you throw him the tape, it's like, oh yeah, this guy can track it. Well, I do think, like, yes, the thing about like the play strength and tackling, he isn't like, Julian Love. Like, if you compare to like a guy just in size wise, if you're looking at a guy size wise, because they're around the same size or whatever, right? Like, Love was obviously a much better tackler than him, and obviously, he plays safety and in the NFL, and there's a difference there, but he isn't a horrible, like, he's not a liability. I don't think, right? Like, I don't see him as a liability. And the other thing is like, if you can cover, that supersedes everything. Like, that is everything. So I just think that health will be the thing, right? Health will be the thing. And I get it. But it'll be like, and if his career doesn't go as good as possible, then you'll say it's because of the health. I think that's fair. But I mean, I'm telling you, like, before heading into during his sophomore year, it was like, he's going to be a top 15 pick. That's what, people were saying around the program. That's what people were saying. Like, NFL scouts were like telling people, like, that was where he was projected to go. So it's like one of these things where it's like, if he goes in this, he's probably goes second or third round, right? If he goes there, you might just he might be one of the guys that, if he's healthy, if you said he's the best corner in the class, like 5 years from now, it wouldn't be surprising. It shouldn't be, right? Like, if even saying that with like Travis Hunter, as good as Travis Hunter is, and Travis Hunter is obviously a freaking amazing or whatever, but Travis Hunter could be like an all-time great player, but it's like Ben Morrison could be like, perennial Pro Bowl type guy if he's healthy. I just think that because watch him match up against like top guys and lock them up. And how many guys too, and this is the other thing that doesn't. So it's like, yes, he's grabby. Of course. Name me a guy who plays 60% man coverage that isn't grabby. 0 guys.
Yeah. And like he doesn't use help. Like he doesn't get a ton of help, right? Like they left him out there, right?
Yeah.
And look, he didn't take a ton of penalties. He took some, but he didn't take a bunch. And maybe maybe you got to clean it up in the pros. You mentioned Travis Hunter. Ben Morrison gave up 220 less yards, like in coverage, than Hunter did on two less targets, right? So it's like they threw at Ben Morrison 129 times. They threw at Hunter 131 times. The difference is 220 yards allowed. Different, it's a huge difference. Yards per attempt was better for Ben Morrison than Travis Hunter. Completion percentage was better for Ben Morrison and Travis Hunter. Like passes defended. Like, and I'm not saying Ben Morrison is a better corner than Travis Hunter. I'm not. Like Travis Hunter is bigger. He's just a crazy good athlete, right? I'm not. That's not the point. They're also better.
He's faster than him, like
for sure.
Like beat him in a race.
Travis Hunter is a better prospect than Ben Morrison is, just straight up. Like Will Johnson, he has better stats than Will Johnson does. And like in the thing that Bruce Feldman said, that they were making the comparison. It's like Will Johnson went against Marvin Harrison Jr. twice. Ben Morrison went against Marvin Harrison Jr. twice. Again, for Michigan, they rotated help towards Will Johnson, and then when they didn't have Will Johnson with help, he gave up 3 explosives against Marvin Harrison Jr. Ben Morrison didn't give up any of that stuff, and they played him straight up man. So like,
well, they did him to help sometimes, but yes, he played way more single coverage than I bet anybody who played Harrison that entire year. Entire year, I guarantee you, no one played more man coverage snaps than Ben Morrison did against them.
Yeah. So look, if it's an injury thing, I get it. The thing that really bugs me is like, don't tell me about his playing. Like, don't tell me about that. Like, yeah. I don't want to hear it. And don't tell me about the tape either. I've seen the tape. We've both seen the tape. We've both seen all 22. He's never getting cooked. He's like, Travis Hunter gives up a touchdown to Kyle Williams. It's like, look, that's one. That's fine. You don't have any tape like that of Ben Morrison getting cooked like that. You don't have any tape of Alec Alum doing anything to Ben Morrison the way that he did to Travis Hunter. You just don't have it.
I think, it just from like a Notre Dame perspective, I would say like, he's the best corner, so I'm just going to take the time that I've been covering the team for IST. So the last 10 years.
Yeah.
He is by far the best corner, that in terms of being in phase.
Yeah.
And making it look easy. Like, which is why he can make plays on back shoulder plays that like you don't see anybody else. And I would say like Leonard Moore's probably second right now, and he's a freshman, and maybe he'll end up being better. But still, there's just so many plays. And I look at there's the one slot fade against Texas A&M to begin the season, right? Mm-hmm. Where they're running into Noah Thomas. Obviously, he's a big body, super fast guy in the slot. They're running a slot fade there. Like, the ball shouldn't even have been thrown, because if it was on target, it's a pick. And there's so many of those plays of like coverage plays for Ben Morrison, because he's just like, it is one of those things where he can run. So if the hip's a problem, yeah, I get it. But like, if he is healthy, he can run with pretty much anyone.
Yeah. And like you mentioned Leonard Moore, who is very, very good. He's
awesome.
Good. And honestly, like he has, I'll bet you he has it, because A, he doesn't have the injury history, and B, he's bigger.
Yes.
Like Leonard Moore has more potential as a tackler than Ben Morrison does. The touchdown that he gave up against Louisville on the go ball to Ja'Cory Brooks, like that is a touchdown that Ben Morrison has not given up. And the reason is because Leonard Moore did get out of phase on that, and he looked back before he got back in phase. And so, look, the guy made a great catch. This isn't even really anything against Leonard Moore. It's just an example of, like, that's a situation that Ben Morrison does not find himself in because he's, like you said, he's always in phase, you know? And so, like, I just think it's just, yeah, go ahead.
You know, not to dominate the whole thing. We're talking about Ben Morrison, but he is the most contentious prospect because of the injuries, and obviously he only played half the year. But tell me a play where he was out of phase and had to, like, go and, like, face guard the receiver to, like, you know, make up for it. I don't recall. I can't remember him having to do that. And that is, like, insane. Like, that does not happen to corners who play man coverage at that kind of rate. Yeah. So, because sometimes you're just going to get beat, right? And I'm not saying he never got beat in his career. Yes, but I'm just talking about vertically. It didn't happen for him in that way. And I mean, that's pretty special. So, I really hope he's healthy, because I think he's a guy that, you know, if he is, then you'll look back on it and you'll say, like, wow, this was, like, truly the first great player of the Freeman era was Ben Morrison.
Yeah. And, like, like, you can nitpick. Like, sometimes he gets, like, on slants, right? Like, I've seen him lose on slants before, but like you said, anything down the field, it's not there. You can't find it. It doesn't show up on tape. You can't find a situation like that. There's a bunch of players that are kind of lumped in, all in, like, that fourth round area. Mitchell Evans being one. With Riley Mills being one. Jack Kaiser is actually, like, 4th, 5th round, according to Dane Brugler, which I thought was interesting. I thought he'd be lower just because I didn't think he tested as well as I thought he could. And I thought he needed it because he's not that big. But I mean, obviously, look, I think the fact that JD Bertrand and Maris Leofau have done so well in the NFL really helps him, because it's like he came from the same system, and he came, like, it was the same kind of thing, and he had production at Notre Dame. So I think that helps him a lot. So, like, he's all jumped in there. And then I want to talk about Riley Leonard a little bit too, because he's, like, 4th, 5th round as well. And I was listening to a podcast yesterday with Nate Tice, who's always kind of been on him. He was on him in the preseason about this guy. He liked him. And he's like, I'm still on Riley Leonard. Like, I think there's a lot of potential there. We'll talk about him in a second. But, like, of the Mitchell Evans, Jack Kaiser, Riley Mills kind of trio, like, who do you kind of like the most as an NFL player, you know, kind of coming out of that group? And obviously, like, big caveat, situation matters a ton about where you're going and things like that. But just in your opinion, like, who do you see as the best NFL prospect of those three guys?
Evans, I think would be my pick for that, just because I think he's got the best chance at being a starter out of those guys, because I think that, Kaiser could definitely be a starter. I guess there's an outside shot that Leonard could maybe one day be a starter somewhere. I mean, there's certainly been some bad guys that have started games that I have no idea how, and, you know, he could, you know, start some games at some point. But I think for the most part, Riley Leonard is going to be a backup in the NFL, and be a guy that, but could be a guy who hangs around for a long time. I think that's for sure. Like, that's something that's there. And I still think he has room to grow and get better. And I think Kaiser, he's going to be like a core special teams guy. He's going to be, like, really smart. I do think he's someone who could be, you know, maybe be a starter, you know, at some point in his NFL career. But also too, like, he also strikes me as a guy who's probably, you know, you got to realize too, right? It's a two linebacker league now.
Yeah.
And I think he has value because he can rush a passer pretty good. Like, he's a better pass rusher and, like, a better blitzer than I think a lot of people give him credit for. But I don't think he's not in the dynamic type of mold where you see, like, some of these guys, like the kid from A&M last year, that his name escapes me, but that guy, like
who came out or who played for them,
who came out for them,
Okay.
Right. So, like his thing is like he was like a hybrid guy, right? Like he's a hybrid guy. Yeah. That's what it really too, like at linebacker. And I think of like who Demarion Overshawn, right?
Oh, okay.
He's not he's a Texas guy, but I'm talking about him on Dallas. And he was a later pick, but he was like a safety guy who converted to linebacker, and he's just a freak athlete. And now you see he's like unleashed as a pass rusher, and you could see like, I mean, he's got a chance to be like a Pro Bowl guy for many, many years. And I just don't know if, like, to me, Jack Kaiser feels like he's a classic, like, third linebacker on a team, like getting to that point where kind of similar to Bertrand, where it's like, yeah, you know what, he might be a starter and could start some games, but also is probably going to be a guy who's going to like probably make your team. And like, if he's got to like go in and play, he can go and play well, but he's probably not going to be like a super high impact guy in the league. And I think with Evans, he's got the best chance of being a starter if he's in the right spot. One, because I think he is a better inline blocker than we've kind of seen in the last like year, basically, because I think he was used so much in the passing game, and they motioned him, they ran him to death, like in terms of how much stuff that he had to do.
Yeah.
But if you look at like say 2022, when he was the second tight end, you know, in that second half of the year when he came back from his injury, he was awesome as an inline blocker. So I think he can be like a really good like inline blocker. He's a guy who's got obviously like really good ball skills, better after the catch than you think. He's never going to be like a super dynamic, like, you know, Brock Bowers kind of guy after the catch. He's not that guy, right? But if you look at like, I'm not saying he'll be Cole Kmet, but I think, you know, it's not out of the question he could have like be in that same kind of range of a player, you know, at some point and become a starter on the right team, right? Like on the right team. Because, and the other thing is like, he's huge. Like he is just a massive dude. And I think he will stick in the league for a long time if he's healthy. Like you look at like Brock Wright, and obviously Brock Wright is like, I mean, the guy's found a space in the league. Like he's done it, and he never was a starter at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Same with like guys like, I mean, Tremble's found like a, you know, a really like, you know, he's had a good career. I mean, Durham Smythe is like a long career. All these tight ends have long careers, and most of those guys have been like starters at some point or like done something. And I think that Evans probably has the best chance at being a starter. And to me, like, I think he's probably going to be like, yeah, 4th, 5th round kind of seems like the right kind of spot for him. And if he goes to like the right team, I think he could be like a really, really good player in the league.
I wonder if Harbaugh wants to sniff around him, because we know the Chargers like to take Notre Dame guys just generally. That's been a thing in the past, and like 2 tight ends, you know, like Harbaugh. It just seems like something like that would work out. I mean, I'm trying to think. Like, I know. Well, so like Mark Andrews with the like maybe the Ravens could go in for him, because he kind of is in that mold, right? Of kind of like the Mark Andrews type, who's like not really run after catch, but like is good at the catch point. I know they like Isaiah Likely, right, with the Ravens. I'm just trying to think like that the Lions obviously could, but they've got a bunch of tight ends. Like they could go in a different direction, but I'm just trying to think of teams that like are employing the tight end like that. That's a good fit. You mentioned his size is 6'5", 250. So he is a very, very big player. What's your read on Mills? I'm curious to get your kind of take on Mills and like what because he has that size that like a bunch of Notre Dame players on the inside like haven't had, that we're always kind of talking about. He's also seen as a 4th round pick. So like, how do you see his kind of career unfolding? Like, what kind of team do you feel like fits for Riley Mills?
I mean, so many teams really, because he's one of these guys who can play like 3 down or 4 down, right?
Yeah.
So and rush the passer from the interior too, right? So I think, he's a guy who can play as like a 5 tech, like, in a 4-eye, like in a 3 down front. He can do that. He has that kind of versatility to be able to do that and do that well. And I think it's just such a shame that he obviously got hurt, obviously not just for Notre Dame's chances at the end there and the impact he was playing, but I tend to think that with a lot of guys, and people remember with like Capron Lewis Moore, he obviously tore his Achilles, and then he was a 6th round pick, right?
Yeah.
And it's his Mills's injury isn't as bad as that, obviously. Maybe he will be back at some point next year. Like, that is not crazy, but the time of the year that it happened and all that, you're probably not going to get him early in the year. And I always think they're always looking, NFL teams are always looking at value, and they're like, we're going to get this guy 4 years on a contract, but if you only get him for like 3 years on a contract, then it's like, well, then he's not going to be worth this pick or whatever. So I do think like he'll probably be like, a late day 3 pick because of that. But I think if he would have stayed healthy, he would have had a shot to really like maybe be like, sneak into the 3rd round or something like that. I think that could have been on the table, because he's one of these guys who traits wise has like just way more than a lot of guys. I would say probably traits wise, up there with anyone that Notre Dame has in this draft class, and probably better than anyone really. And I think that he's just in a position right now where he didn't have maybe if his production over his career was like so great that it was like, okay, this is undeniable, then he does become like a 3rd round pick or something like that. But I think like, his production really this was his best year production wise, and also just film wise was by far the best year that he's had. I just don't think he put enough on film there over that time to kind of get to, where he's going to be taken early, kind of regardless of the injury. So, I mean, I could see him go in the 4th round or something like that too, if a team like really, really likes him. But I do just get the sense, just if you look at it, like, there's a lot of really good, similar guys to him in the draft. And it's like, well, you're going to, if all things even, you're going to knock a guy down who just tore his ACL.
Yeah, it's hard because, like you said, it's a bummer for him because he had a good game against Indiana, or he was having a good game against
he was
Indiana.
great. He was playing great.
And then, and then he gets hurt. It's like the games that, look at how Abdul Carter shot up because of the way he played in against Notre Dame in that game. I mean, obviously people already liked him, but then it was like Jason Smith pointed out, like the buzz, like he didn't get to go against Georgia, right? He didn't get to go against Penn State. He didn't get to go against Ohio State. Like those are marquee matchups that people want to see, right? Like that's the kind of tape that people put so much stock in, And so like for him, that's a bummer. His measurables will get him drafted, of course. And that's good for him. But like you said, he didn't realize the upside that he could have had. Here's the thing about Riley Leonard. And, I was having this conversation with Brendan from 1 Foot Down today, and he was kind of asking me like, what's the upside for Riley Leonard? Like, what are you hoping to get? And I was trying to, I made a joke like, oh, he's a poor man's Josh Allen or whatever. Like, I do think that his kind of upside, like his like pie in the sky kind of like outcome is Colin Kaepernick. I think he could be that type of player because I think Kaepernick's probably more explosive as a runner, but like Leonard is close to that. And I think he could be a similar passer too in the right system. It's just a matter of getting there. And the reason that, we were talking about Nate Tice before about how he's always been on Riley Leonard is Nate Tice has always said like Riley Leonard has not been a quarterback for that long. And he like looks at some of these other guys where it's like, man, these guys have been groomed to be quarterbacks since they were like 9, 10, 11 years old. And Riley Leonard started out as a wide receiver. It's kind of that, I mean, maybe another comp is the, who was the Texas A&M quarterback who was a wide receiver? Then he became a quarterback, and then he got Tannehill.
Tannehill.
It was
Ryan
Tannehill, like something like that, where it's like you start as a wide receiver, you haven't been a quarterback for that long, and then you come into the league and you kind of, or not, you come into the quarterback position and you kind of learn as it goes, right? Like Dane Brugler brought in this thing, like he's not yet ready to be a true anticipation quarterback, but he has shown improvement there. It's like if Riley Leonard can use the time in the NFL, 1, 2, 3 years as a backup, and then maybe he can grow himself into that Colin Kaepernick was very similar to that, by the way. Like it took him a little longer to kind of get into the NFL. Like, I think that's kind of what you're looking for with Riley Leonard, because like everyone loves his athleticism, loves his competitiveness. And I think the arm is good enough in their eyes to where it's like, if he can grow in these other areas, he can be something, right? He's seen as a 4th, 5th rounder. So that I think that's kind of interesting to me.
I think he's the person who improved his stock the most in the college football playoff.
Yeah.
Because I think he was probably like a fringe, like, maybe he'll get drafted. We'll see, whatever. And then the way he played and the way he threw the ball really in, the playoff games, like, I think that probably, in those situations, the way he, stepped up, his toughness, I think like all of that, like really like improved it. And I think I don't think there's anything you said that I don't agree with. Like, I really, kind of feel the same way in a lot of ways. I also think that like I said, there's been a ton of guys that I'm like, how did this guy ever get, start an NFL game? There's a lot of guys like that. And I think when you're thinking about guys who are like smart, tough, guys who really like care and like teammates like and can like rally around or whatever, like, I don't really think like, I mean, obviously he wasn't as good as like a Marcus Mariota in college. Like, I'm not saying that at all, but when I think of like Marcus Mariota as a pro, I'm like, I think it's kind of a similar thing to kind of like what you could see with a guy like Leonard, where he could be like kind of like fringe starter. I think that's kind of like, maybe a ceiling is that he could be that kind of guy.
Yeah. And so it remains to be seen. The good news is that like his athleticism will give him a chance. He just has to go do it, but he was a good enough athlete. And honestly, I think he threw the ball well enough in the playoffs, like you said, to where it's like people feel like that's the thing too. Like the way that he came back against Penn State, throwing the ball, the second half against Ohio State, like really helps him, just from a draft standpoint. It's a good defense he did it against. So we'll kind of see on that. Kind of rounding it out, Howard Cross doesn't have the size, doesn't have the athleticism. Right, he's going to be a late round pick. It's just kind of like one of those things. Bo Collins is seen as a free agent type, and that's true of like Jordan Clark. That's true of Jaden Harrison, who's got to find a way to make it as a like a special teams guy. Am I missing anybody? I don't think I am. I think that's
no. I mean, that's pretty much it. Like, I don't think that. I mean, Chris Mitchell, he's not going to get drafted.
No.
No. He's not going to get drafted. I don't think there's Oben. I think there's an outside shot, of some team kind of like taking him in like the 7th round or something like that, thinking like, hey, this guy's got traits and he did test well. Right. So, and, he is a better, and he's got what he does the best is he rushes the passer best. And that's obviously something of value. So do I think as like a developmental, defensive lineman getting picked in the 7th round, like, yeah, I think that could happen for him. I worry about like, Cross not getting picked at all just because of, like you said, the stuff that he didn't test out the gym. He didn't, his tape this year was not close to the tape the previous year because of, what, the injuries and all that. Are they going to take it all into account? Get out of here, Mike. Just Mike jumping in.
It's tough. Like it's tough.
No, I know.
I hate to say that.
Yeah,
and it's like Shedeur. It's Shedeur Jackson Dart for you too. It's man, I don't know. But that's hurtful. That hurts me.
Yeah, I mean, I just can't see. You know what? I actually think Bo Collins has an outside shot of getting drafted too, because another guy who's testing stuff. Like, it's just like there are teams that just like take shots on guys late, because of that testing. But I mean, I don't think so. Like, I don't see him as an NFL, wide receiver. I just don't. I don't know. I think if you look at it too, and I do think like Jordan Clark has an outside shot at being like someone, because I think the pedigree thing is a thing. Like, that is definitely it does matter,
especially because his dad was also undrafted.
Yes. And I also think too, nickel is the most undervalued position in terms of draft. Like, people don't. That's why you can get Mike Hilton as like a guy who's a free agent, right? And so if I was gonna say, of like, it doesn't matter, like with guys like Cross, Clark, those guys who don't have, like, they're undersized, whatever. I didn't think those guys could still make 53-man rosters. Like, that is still possible, even if they don't get drafted. Like, that is a distinct possibility. I think if we're going to look at, like, say, like these guys that we're mentioning right now, those two, I think, would have the best shot at making a team.
Yeah. You got to find the value in your draft picks, in your draft. Find value in your media company, Jamie. You got to find it wherever it is. And we've got value for you with VSR Media, founded by Notre Dame Football pregame host and Emmy Award-winning anchor Vahid Sadrazadeh. VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or are aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, and website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshots, senior and sports photos. Contact them at vsrmediacompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. A lot of people in the chat are talking about their football teams. I'm a lifelong Ravens fan since 2022. So, I mean, like I said, we're manifesting Xavier Watts to play next to Kyle Hamilton for the next 7 years, and that's going to be great. So, look, light a candle for that sort of thing. Mike is, you know what? Like, if it was anybody else, it would, like, they would be considered spamming the chat, and they would have to be put in timeout. That's the thing. But we're going to let Mike stay because he pays the bills. All right. So, on the current roster, you think Jeremiah Love's going to be a first-round pick, Jamie?
Yes.
100%?
If he's healthy, 100%.
100%. All right.
Well, Ashton Johnson might be a top 5 pick.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
If you were going to say, and I don't, whatever, I think people say, like, oh, like, Love is way better than Ashton Johnson. He's not, but he's in the like, they're, to me, you could be like, if Love was in this draft, if Jonty's 1A, then Love would be 1B.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think that's crazy to say that. And I think, like, you're going to see more from Love this year in terms of what he can do. I think he is and also too, he's, how fast he is, like, his testing is going to be great, all that kind of stuff. Like, I just don't see, any scenario where he's healthy, that he isn't a first-round pick from someone.
I mean, Jahmyr Gibbs was a first-round pick.
Yes. Yeah. And I just think, like, yeah, he and also too, if you look at all these kind of like things like analytics, when you talk about, like, oh, the way he is, his percentage of missed tackles forced per carry and all that kind of stuff is like, hey, that's like elite level kind of things. Guys go in the first round with those, with that kind of stuff. So, I think, yeah, I would say out of the next year's thing, by far, he's like would be the top prospect out of the team. But I mean, it's interesting because I think there are quite a number of guys that I think could be there. Like, I do think, like, I mean, I don't think Eli Raridon is going to be a first round pick based off.
I don't think.
Do
you think he'll come out? Do you think he'll come out?
I think he has to. I don't think he's got a.
Does he not?
Year.
I thought he
doesn't.
Because
he played. I believe he played more than. I believe he played 5 games in his first year when he tore his ACL, and then he was, came back obviously the back half of the last year and played more than 5. So neither of that. And then last year's his junior, and so you don't get the extra. So he only has the 1 year, I believe. So I think that's it. But I think honestly, I do think he could be like one of the top tight ends in next year's draft. And I think he's going to have like the kind of production and all that, like in the film, is going to look really good. So I do think he's somebody, day 2 is definitely on the table for him if he, plays up to his potential. And then I think from there, I mean,
it seems like all their top guys
are the next
are the next class after that.
Yeah, because even if you said, like, I mean, like Drake Bowen, I don't see him like coming out.
No,
even if he has like just a monster year, which I think is on the table, but it's just I don't see him coming out. I don't think that like Greathouse could come out if he has like a monster year. I think that's like would be there. I mean, also that just kind of fits with receivers, but I also don't think Greathouse is going to be like, because I don't think he's going to test like crazy or whatever. Maybe he's a day 2 if like he has the absolute most lights out year possible and all that kind of stuff. Maybe, right? I mean, Price, I think is he's not going to stay for like a 5th year.
I think he would go. Yeah,
Price will go, and Price is going to get drafted. Like I would be, feel very confident he will. Malachi Fields, yep, he's going to be a guy who's going to be, definitely picked. Obviously, it depends on the year he has, but I mean, he's got a shot, I think, to be like, a high pick if he gets it. First round, I don't know, right? Like, he better have just an insane year to have that. That's a lot to ask. So I mean, certainly just guys at his size that run like he does, there's just not many guys like that. And then I don't see, like, I could see Shrouth going, and leaving and not staying for a 5th year. I mean, as a guard, I think he's going to be like a super high pick. Probably not, but he's, going to be someone who I think is an NFL player. And I don't think that I can't see Emil Wagner like coming out after this year. Like, I think he will be a 5-year guy. Like,
the thing is, like, if he plays another 900 snaps, though, that's a lot of snaps, man.
It is
good. I mean, good.
Well, okay, if he plays another 900 snaps and they have that kind of year again, I mean, first of all, he's going to be way better than he was last year. That is going to be a thing. So, I mean, if you're looking for a dark horse who could be like a 1st round pick, it would probably be him.
Yeah.
He would be the guy out of the guys who could leave. Defensive line wise, Onye, I know the guy's barely played in his career. If you look at it, he's an NFL dude if he gets it all together, and he could have a monster year and get picked. I'm not saying he's going to be a high pick or anything like that, but he could have a monster year and get picked. I think that Botello, man, I really wish he didn't get hurt last year because I don't know how much that's going to affect him. I don't know how that's going to happen, but he was playing his way. If
he didn't get hurt, he'd be in this draft.
He'd be in this draft. He'd be absolutely be in this draft. I think that, I mean, Jared Dawson is somebody who's definitely has a chance to be a pick. That's on the table for him. I mean, I wouldn't say it's like a sure thing because he's obviously a guy who's playing like an extra year. at Notre Dame, but that's a possibility. I think because Boubacar didn't, which is, I mean, it's crazy. People might think it's crazy to talk about him because he's barely played, but like, I'm telling you, if he would have played last year and then he would have played this year, I think he would have been a guy who they talked about as like, maybe he's gone.
Yeah.
Because he is coming back from the injury, it would have to be just like a massive year where he is a first round pick. And that would be the only way, because the other thing is like, I mean, whatever NIL he's going to get a lot. So like that's just a given. Right. And so I think with like, and like the same thing with like, if you would have said like Charles Jagusaw played all of last year and then he had the thing and then he was like a 3-year guy, maybe it would have been on the table, but no, he's like definitely not. I don't see it. And then I don't really see anybody else who's like, I think that would, leave. I would sincerely doubt that Christian Gray is going to be that. I mean, it's a possibility, but like he has to have a really, I mean, he had a good year last year. He has to have like a great year and be like kind of address all those things that you think about, and then be like someone where they're like, oh, he's going to be like, one of the top corners in the draft. Can he play himself into that? I mean, I think that's very TBD.
Because of NIL, Christian Gray would need to feel pressure from someone behind him, where it's like, hey, we want to get this kid in the lineup. Like if Dallas Golden came in and they were like, hey, like we need to make him the starter, and then maybe he would go in that situation. If not, take the NIL money and start at Notre Dame again. That's how I see it.
Yeah. Also, too, we should, because Siddharth mentioned Jalen Sneed. Sneed he'll go. Like, he doesn't have to have all.
He has to go. Yeah, I think.
Well, he does. No, he doesn't have to. He still has another year, but he's not a 5-year guy. Like, he's not going to be a 5-year guy. So I think like he's definitely. He probably is like, biggest variance of floor to ceiling out of those guys. And like, if you were looking for a guy, another kind of sleeper guy to be like, whoa, he became like a really high pick out of it because of like the kind of year he had, he would be, it would be him and Wagner in those, in that kind of mix.
Michael Hahn and Sid Irish were talking about Fields and his speed. Michael Hahn said Fields doesn't have that elite speed. Sid Irish said Fields is like a slower Chase Claypool. I don't know that that's true. I feel like that. I mean, he might be slower than Claypool, but like not that much. Like if I've seen anything from Fields, it's like he does have some juice, like a lot more juice.
He's got vertical speed. Yes.
It's a little bit more like longer speed than it is Claypool. Like Claypool, I felt like was a very quick accelerator. I don't know that Fields has that, but like Fields does have like, you look at his top end and it's like, man, that guy can move. He can roll. So I think he's a little bit better athlete than I think he's being credit for here. That kind of remains to be seen.
Yeah. And I'll just say too, because whatever. And I don't want to, talk bad about someone. So I don't take it as I'm talking bad about Gabriel Rubio, but somebody on ISD's board said they think he's going to be a first round pick. No,
he's a worse athlete than Riley Mills.
Not even close.
Yeah.
The same athlete. He's Gabriel Rubio. I think like maybe could play in the league. Like that is something that could possibly, because he's just a big body who's like strong at the point of attack, but he's a 2-down player. He's not a pass rusher. He's basically shown very little as a pass rusher. And to be honest, I don't know what much else he has to offer there. And that ultimately, like, you are not going to be you can't be a guy who's a high pick, maybe not even picked at all, if you aren't that. So you better, unless you are just straight dominant against the run. So, and I mean, he's been good versus the run, but nowhere close to dominant. So, and it wasn't like I saw anything this spring that made me think, oh man, he's just like a wrecking ball who's just going to do it. I think, and obviously there's a lot of guys like him that I would say are like on the fringe of like, maybe they would have a shot at being in the league or whatever. But they better take like big strides, going forward to kind of show that they could be that. Cause and just being realistic about it. I'm not just, if we're just looking at it objectively from it, because there's nothing I hate more than when there's like people who cover Notre Dame football, not Notre Dame football, but like these teams in general. I think it's a team site thing where guys are like, this guy's a first round pick. And I'm like, what are you? I mean, like, you have obviously never followed the NFL, because there's so many of these guys that just like, as good as you think someone might be, like I could even tell you to Howard Cross, who obviously everybody knows I'm a huge Howard Cross fan. He's a great player. I was like a big proponent of him way before he even blew up and had the kind of year that he had in 2023. But even knowing that he had that year, and if he would have went out last year, right, and came out last year, the odds of him being in the first like 4 rounds were slim because of all the other things that are valued by the NFL. They just don't. Outliers are not valued.
Yeah. You got to be a freak athlete, and he just isn't that, especially if you're going to be smaller. So, one last thing: the judge in the case for the House settlement for the NCAA, she basically came out and ruled that I think the NCAA lawyers have 14 days to outline a plan to grandfather in the players who are now on rosters, like walk-ons, things of that nature, so that they are not cut from football teams, that they still have a place on the team, and so that will, like, basically find a way. We're not cutting players is basically what she is. And if not, then I'm going to dismiss the whole case, and you're going to lose. Right. So, I mean, look, to me, that's great for the players. It's good for Marcus Freeman. He doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to go around cutting guys, because that's just kind of not cool. I don't like the 105 anyway. So that, for me, that's a good thing. I don't know why that we need to have a limit on that sort of thing. Sid Iris says we can have 105. You can have more than 105, basically, is what it is. You can have more than that. So teams don't go after, we're not cutting players. So that was something that I wanted to highlight. I know you're not a fan of the 105 either. So
no.
Yeah, but that's a question that people have been kind of asking, and so that was the ruling came down there. And that's what that was.
I mean, yeah. And anyone who kind of followed that before, it was like the judge had said previously, like, fix this.
Yeah.
And then they were like, nah. Get out of here, NCAA, you incompetent losers. Like, seriously, do better. Do better. Like, the lawyers just wanted some extra hours. They wanted to get some extra money. Like, what's going on here? Like, just all they had to do was do the thing where they grandfathered it in. And the thing is, too, is that, like, you can just get, like, guys don't have forever now, because the COVID stuff is over in terms of eligibility. So walk-ons can't hang around forever anymore. So that's not going to happen. So, like, just, and the thing is, knowing that the 105 was coming, people didn't take a bunch of walk-ons this year. That wasn't happening. So there aren't a lot of freshmen that are going to be around, 4 years later that can't be cut for 4 years. Like, that isn't going to happen. So it's just one of these things that's just so stupid that the way the NCAA handled it. I will say, one of the things that I think people aren't talking about it enough, no one should focus on anything to do with 85 scholarships anymore.
Right.
Like, because I still see some people, which I always would tell people who were really into like, oh, can they get down to 85? I was like, yes. They always do. Right. They always do. But now, even with the, you got it. Now you don't even have to ever worry about it, because I think the other thing is that as far as I know, teams did not like do the mass cutting of guys that they would have done to get to 85 in a lot of ways for, certain schools, even though a bunch of guys went in the portal. That was more of like, hey, get into the 105 than it was getting to the 85 kind of thing. So like, so if you're worried, like, man, Notre Dame's at 92 this year, whatever, I think they'll be at 90 or whatever it is, right? Like whatever they end up at, it'll be fine, because I think everybody's over. Like I don't know how they could police it. Like it's just, it's just how it is.
Yeah. So, but good to get some clarity on that situation. So we can end it there. Thank you everyone for tuning in. If you like what you heard, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell. So whatever it is, we are going live. We'll be back on Monday with Mike for Power Hour, and then our normal services for Hit and Hustle will be on tap as well. So that'll do it for today. Enjoy the draft, everyone. Good luck to your teams. Congratulations to Xavier Watts being a member of the Ravens. That's good stuff. So we'll talk to you after that. We'll analyze the draft. Have a good weekend, everyone. Keep hitting and hustling.